Hey, Savvy Social Workers. So I wanted to come on here really quickly and just kind of work this question out. I saw this question in another group and it was answered very incorrectly. So I don't know if anybody else saw it. It's been, it's an older question, but I wanted to also just do this question and provide you with the correct answer and the correct rationale for this particular question. Okay, this is not my question. This is a question. I don't know who it belongs to, but I did see people answering this in a different group some time ago. So let's get into it. A social worker in private practice is meeting with a 19-year-old female due to concerns with excessive worry and episodes of depression. The client reports that her best friend died by suicide and that she has not been coping well with it. She states that she finds it difficult to get out of bed, avoids phone calls from friends, and is neglecting her activities of daily living. She also reports an increase in alcohol consumption. What should the social worker do first? Now, keep in mind, I did tweak this question a little bit to make it more Aswb type, but I did not change the gist of the question. Okay, so for those of you who say it looks familiar, that's because it is. I just tweaked it a little bit my way. Okay, but all the information is pretty much in line with what the initial question was already asking. So we have a social worker that is in private practice. She is meeting with a 19-year-old female. So is meeting lets me know that I am in the beginning phase of the helping process with her. My presenting problem is a 19-year-old female who has concerns with excessive worry and episodes of depression. This is why she is here. So this is my presenting problem. Okay, so the client tells me that her best friend died by suicide and she has not been coping well with it. So I definitely want to pay attention to what's in quotation marks. And she states that she finds it difficult to get out of bed and all of these things. And she also reports an increase in alcohol consumption. All of this is problematic. So we are going to go ahead and categorize all of this as our priority problem, especially focusing on what we have in quotations as well. This is a first question, so that means we want to do the most important thing about the priority problem. So just a visual recap of where we are. We are in the beginning with working with a 19-year-old woman who has concerns of worry, excessive worry, and episodes of depression. Her main issue is she has not been coping with the death of her friend, which has her barely getting out of bed, not talking to her friends, and neglecting her activities of daily living. So that means she's probably not going to work, she's probably not bathing, she's probably not eating, all those things. So, but she is drinking a lot. So she's laying around drinking a lot. So what is going to be the most important thing you want to do for her? Is it A, validate her feelings and provide her information on the stages of grief? Is this going to be the most important thing that we want to do first with a client who is exhibiting all of these symptoms? We definitely want to validate her feelings, but providing her information about grief right now, I feel like there is something more important that we need to focus on, but we'll pause it just to see what the other answers are first. Complete a suicide risk assessment. Is there anything in here that insinuates or denotes suicide, possible suicide ideation from her? Where there are a lot of signs and symptoms of her not coping well with her friend's death, her not getting out of bed, her neglecting her activities of daily living, all those things. So definitely completing a suicide risk assessment is something that's important that we might want to pay attention to. Is that more important than validating her feelings and providing her information on the stages of grief? It is. Suicide is top priority. So if we want to prioritize anything over feelings, it is definitely going to be her livelihood. So we can go ahead and eliminate A just based off of that. All right, let's go to C. Assist the client with identifying goals for treatment to prioritize her life's issues. Okay, so yes, she does have a lot of issues. And so is it going to be the most important thing for the social worker to start identifying her goals for treatment by prioritizing her life issues, all these issues, help her to prioritize them and come up with some goals for that? Is that going to be more important than her livelihood again, because I am comparing it to the answer so far that is my top contender. So that's another strategy that I use, is that I'm always going to, once I get a top contender answer, I am going to always compare the other answer choices up against it, especially for a first question, because with first, we know that some answers will be, you know, good choices, but we're looking to do the most important thing. So is assisting her with identifying goals more important than completing a suicide risk assessment that we've already established that we probably need to do based upon these signs and symptoms? No, it is not. So I'm going to eliminate it on those bases. And I will point out that this is the answer that in the other group that was said to be the correct one, and it is extremely incorrect. Okay, so gather more information about her alcohol use. So I know that we want to prioritize substance abuse as well, because she has an increase in her alcohol consumption. So I can see why this will be most important. But again, is gathering more information about her alcohol use, is that more important than her livelihood? No, it's not, because if she doesn't have livelihood, then she will not have an alcohol problem for us to gather more information for about. So we're going to eliminate that on the basis of that. So based off of what specifically in quotation she's telling you she's not coping well with her best friend's suicide, and she's having difficulty getting out of bed, she's not even engaging with her friends, she's neglecting her activities of daily living, and she's increased her substance use, we definitely want to assess her risk for suicide. The client is not only verbalizing, but she's exhibiting signs of grief and depression, which can lead to suicide. It is also key to note that the client has recently lost a close loved one by way of suicide. So this puts the client at an increased risk for suicide or suicidal ideation. The risk of completed suicide is much higher in suicide survivors, such as family members or close friends, than in bereaved family members with non-suicide deaths. So knowing this, when we are assessing for suicide, one of the number one questions we ask is, have you lost anyone close to you? Has anyone close to you died by suicide? And so if the answer is yes, that puts these individuals at an increased risk for suicidal ideations themselves. So if it's a sibling, if it's a best friend, if it's a parent, anything like that, this puts this client or this person at an increased risk for the same thing. I know it feels like it should be the opposite, but it is not. So this is one of the most important questions that we ask during a suicide risk assessment. So considering that this client has just lost her best friend to suicide, we definitely want to assess her risk. Hope this was clear. I know I went pretty fast, but I want to jump on here and address this because it's a pretty good question, and to have the wrong answer parading around with it is, you know, not acceptable. So again, you guys continue to study and make sure that you are getting questions from reputable sources, and always fact checking. And just, I know we all want practice questions, but make sure that the questions at least look like or resemble what you see on the actual Aswb exam. So yeah, y'all continue to, you know, like this, share this with anybody who can benefit from it, and let's continue getting those passes the savvy way.